Mount Pleasant Road is a major street running roughly parallel to Yonge Street in Toronto, Ontario. Running for about 7.7 kilometers between Forest Glen Crescent, which is roughly halfway between York Mills and Lawrence, in the north, and Charles Street, 1 block south of Bloor, Mount Pleasant connects several neighborhoods over its length and therefore has always had demand for public transit. Today, we're going to be looking at the TTC's Route 74, Mount Pleasant. Our story starts in 1922 with Toronto's first trolley buses. Designated by the TTC as route number 2, the bus ran from the intersection of Yonge Street and Merton Street and ran along Merton until Mount Pleasant, which it then continued north along until the end of the route at Eglinton Avenue. The service was experimental, it being Toronto's first trolley bus after all. After seeing large ridership, the service was replaced by an extension of the St. Clair streetcar in 1925. In July 1976, what was then known as the Mount Pleasant streetcar was discontinued. The tracks along Mount Pleasant were removed or paved over. Additionally, this bridge over the Beltline rail path needed to be replaced, and so service on Mount Pleasant had to be split, creating the first modern iteration of the current Route 74. 2 shuttle services were introduced to bring service back to the street. Using diesel buses from the Eglinton bus garage, the first route provided service south of the bridge. Running from St. Clair Station's upper bus terminal, the route ran across St. Clair before making a large on-street loop in the Moore Park neighborhood. The second route serviced the north side of the bridge. Starting at Davisville Station, the route ran across Davisville Avenue and up Mount Pleasant to the streetcar's former loop at Eglinton Avenue. In October 1976, work on the bridge was completed, and the shuttle services were both discontinued and replaced by a single route running from the upper bus terminal at St. Clair to the loop at Mount Pleasant and Eglinton. This route was not given a number. Photographs from this time show buses operating with handwritten cards in the window displaying Mount Pleasant. The route used diesel buses, but it wouldn't be for long. By November of 1977, trolleybus wires were installed over the route. For the first time in 50 years, trolleybuses were back on Mount Pleasant. On November 20th, 1977, the first trolleybus from St. Clair Station made its way out of the upper bus terminal on its way to Eglinton Loop. As this was to be permanent, unlike the shuttle bus routes, the service was numbered 74. The number 74 had previously been used on Route 74 Port Credit, however that service was discontinued in early 1976 and replaced by a Mississauga transit service. The trolley buses were operated out of the Eglinton Trolley Bus Garage. Service along Mount Pleasant, north of Eglinton, has historically been provided by various different bus routes operating over essentially the same path. For most of these services' histories, trolley buses had been used. By 1985, service along this part of Mount Pleasant was provided by Route 103 Mount Pleasant North. There were continuous trolley wires along Mount Pleasant, and so one may wonder why the 74 and 103 weren't combined. What I believe may be the most likely explanation for this is customer travel patterns. For those living north of Eglinton wanting to get to the subway, it would be quicker and faster to take a bus to Eglinton Station instead of all the way to St. Clair. A better question to ask would be, why didn't they extend the 74 west from Eglinton Loop to Eglinton Station? We're going to touch more on this later. On the 28th of December 1991, the last trolley buses on Route 74 ran. Trolleybus service on Route 103 lasted just over a week longer, being discontinued on January 5th, 1992. What evidence remains of the trolleybuses? Quite a lot, if you know where to look. Multiple metal poles, which date from the time of trolleybuses and likely carried wires, exist on Mount Pleasant, in areas served by both the 74 and 103. These are scattered down the street, so they shouldn't be too hard to spot if you know what to look for. Additionally, embedded in the ceiling of Eglinton Loop are supports which held up the trolleybus wires. Some parts of Mount Pleasant streetcar are also visible, but I'll cover those in another video if I ever get around to it. The 74 was back to operating diesel buses. This was more operationally flexible, so it allowed the TTC to make changes that would have cost significantly more if the route had operated using trolleybuses. The first and most notable change was the routing of buses into the lower bus terminal at St. Clair opposed to the upper terminal. To this day, buses do not regularly serve the upper terminal, service only being provided by the 512 streetcar. In 1999, there were plans to combine the 74 and 103 into a single route operating from Doncliffe Loop, the end of the 103, and Davisville Station. The service would have operated down Mount Pleasant to Merton Street and then along Merton Street into Davisville Station. It would have looked very similar to the original 1922 trolleybus route, which, if you remember, also operated along Merton. However, this change was not implemented, as residents in the Moore Park neighborhood did not want to lose service along Mount Pleasant. Otherwise, to get to destinations north of St. Clair, they'd have to partake in an awkward subway trip. It would have been easier to just walk. Unfortunately, as the 74 isn't one of the TTC's busiest routes, it suffers whenever budgets are cut. Its service levels were cut multiple times throughout the late 90s and early 21st century, but fortunately modern day service is similar to its former service level. Since 2001, and after the closure of the Eglinton bus garage, buses on Route 74 have been provided by several different garages. From 2001 to 2008, buses came from the new Comstock garage. Between 2008 and 2021, buses were provided by the Wilson garage, and most recently, after a 2021 shuffle of route assignments, the route was switched back to using Comstock garage. In 2016, the route underwent its largest expansion, temporarily taking over the entirety of Route 103. This was due to construction on Line 5. Buses on the 103 could not make the turn between Eglinton and Mount Pleasant, and in later phases of construction, buses on the 74 couldn't use the Eglinton Loop as construction from Mount Pleasant Station blocked their paths. The 74 now operated all the way from Doncliffe Loop to St. Clair Station. Service to Doncliffe was given the designation 74A. Short terms to Eglinton Loop, when they were still possible, were given the designation 74B. This extension, however, is temporary. When Line 5 opens, current estimates say late 2022, early 2023, the 103 will be returned to its former routing. However, the 74 will not. As I hinted to earlier, current plans for the bus route changes once Line 5 opens show the 74 will be routed along Eglinton Avenue into Eglinton Station, making Eglinton Loop redundant. If these changes go ahead, it's hard to say what will happen to Eglinton Loop. Buses will be able to use it again with all the construction cleared, but bus stop markers inside the loop have been removed, which is not a good sign. It's possible the loop may be kept as surplus, seeing occasional short turns and maybe even school specials for the nearby Northern Secondary School. There are a couple similar loops on the TTC network which are declared surplus but are not abandoned. Some examples include Kipling Loop in New Toronto and Fenelon Loop in Graydon Hall. Even if the loop is abandoned, it's not going anywhere soon. As has been plainly obvious, the loop is located essentially inside an apartment building, and unless the building is demolished for condo construction, hey, this is Toronto we're talking about here, expect to see it for decades to come. And that is the history of Route 74 Mount Pleasant, and it's also the end of my very first public YouTube video, so thank you for watching. I'd appreciate feedback for this, because this is my first YouTube video after all. And, yeah, I've tried to emulate the style of some other creators that I watch, and I think it went off well, but of course I need to develop my own unique style and all that. So, yeah, as the first video goes, I think this was pretty good. So, thank you for watching, and, subscribe, because I'm gonna try to do more of this stuff. Yeah, goodbye. Thank you. Wilkie Whale out.